Can Football Manager 25 succeed? That's the question I'm going to try and answer today. It's been a long time waiting for this game to come out. It was supposed to come out in November, as all the FM games are, but it's been delayed to January, and then I think now it's delayed until March. So, still 2 months to go. But can it still succeed? Let's have a deep dive into what needs to happen for it to succeed, or what they need to do following this game to make sure that this doesn't happen again. So let's take a quick look at what this game has going for it. Realistically, it's got a great core fan base. Sports Interactive have done well in keeping a core fan base with Football Manager. Tend to be an older demographic to most games. You're not going to see people playing Fortnite on Football Manager. Maybe they'll see a few crossovers, but typically the demographic that plays Football Managers tends to be adults, just because they prefer the more slower simulation-based games. It's not high action like Fortnite is, or like even like FIFA, FC 25, whatever it is, where you're actually more engaged in the game. Football Manager, you can play it in your spare time in terms of you can do other things at the same time while the game's going. You can play it on the go. It's very accessible, very easy to play in the terms that you don't have to be good at it to play it, and it's good for most people, and that's why it appeals mostly to older adults who don't play games anymore, realistically. So I guess that's what it's got going for it. It's quite a loyal fan base that will stick to the game, even if things do go wrong. They will understand that Sports Interactive is not a massive company compared to like Activision or EA Sports or 2K. It's not to the level of those standards like Rockstar and etc. But at the same time, they are going to get a dip in buy rates, especially. I think one of the massive things that it's got going against it is the timing. Coming out in March is a really poor time to come out, especially because it's only really 2 months out from the football season ending. No one realistically is going to be wanting to play a new game for the season that is nearly finished. This game is going to be for the ongoing 24-25 season, that by March time, there's only going to be 2 months left of the season. The season is going to practically be over. And typically in your FM cycle, March time, you kind of maybe starting your last save or playing around with some of the more interesting teams, maybe doing a journeyman save. But March is typically the time that you're coming to the end of the FM cycle, where you're waiting for the new game to come out for the new season, or you're starting to do updates on the game, and in a couple months' time you'll start doing the updated transfers. So timing is a really poor thing for Sports Interactive to worry about with FM, to a point where are people going to want to buy a new game for a season that's nearly finished? Perhaps not. I think one thing that Sports Interactive could do to counterbalance this is do something similar to what FC 25 have done with their career mode this year, and do a live start point. And what this is that you can start your FC 25 career mode exactly where the current season is. And I think this could be a good thing for challenges for FM, especially if, coming to the end of the season where there's 2 months left, if like Ipswich or Leicester or Southampton are only a few points out of the relegation zone, or whether they're 6 points from safety and there's 10 games left. I think adding a live start point means that people have a different way of playing the game, and they're just jumping in straight to where the current season is, and it brings a whole new aspect to the way people can play FM. This has never been a thing before, live start points, and I think that could be a pretty good thing for FM to do. You just jump straight in, you buy the new game, and you can get Liverpool over the line and win the league with 10 games left. You can get people to win the Champions League, and I think they've been in the quarterfinals by that stage. So live start points could definitely be a way of counterbalancing the timing of the release of FM 25. I think going back to the core fan base, however, I'm going to compare this to FC 25. I think there's going to be a lot of people that start to respect Sports Interactive for their decision to delay the game, because realistically, they could have done the EA Sports route. And I'm going to do a direct comparison with FC 25 here. FC 25 came out at the end of September, and it was unfinished. It was not a finished game at all. If you've played the game, you know the menus were slow and delayed and laggy. The gameplay is just dreadful. There was so many issues with Evos. They couldn't release Evos for like a month. And there was just so much wrong with it, and they lose a lot of respect. But EA Sports are known not really be arsed about their fan base, whereas Sports Interactive, I think a lot of people will turn to respect Sports Interactive for knowing that they couldn't release an unfinished game, and they've waited to make sure that their fan base can get the best possible product that they'll be paying for. They don't want people to pay for an unfinished game like EA Sports would. They delayed it to make sure it was ready for people, and I respect that personally for Sports Interactive, because it shows that they care about their fan base. And I know that they're a one-game release a year company, quite a small company, that they rely on the sales of Football Manager to stay afloat, and they had to release this game this year. I know there's a lot of talk about people saying they should have just done a repackage of FM24 and just waited till FM26 to come out and just completely skip a year, but as a company and a business who only release one game a year, they couldn't really do that. But also there's a lot of licensing issues with FM24 and the reason that they couldn't repackage that, but they did consider that as an idea. But I respect Sports Interactive for the way that they've made sure that their game is ready for people to pay for, because at the end of the day, it's your consumer's money, and they want to make sure that the consumer gets what they pay for. And they could have gone the FC25 route and released an unfinished game, but then they could potentially damage their own reputation with a lot of their core fan base. To think their core fan base know that FM does give a shit, whereas a lot of other gaming companies really don't. They just care about the profits made. Like FC25, for example, they don't care if they release an unfinished game, because they know that shit tons of people are going to pump thousands in with microtransactions, with EA Sports, FIFA points, and etc. So they don't care if the game's unfinished. They know that they're going to profit for the year. EA release record profits each year, more people buying FIFA points every year from the sheer amount of store packs they release. They make sure the store is always working, even if everything else is failing. But Sports Interactive, no, they give a shit about their fans, and they're making sure that their game is ready before they release it, and I respect that a lot from Sports Interactive. Some other things that could go wrong with Sports Interactive is the match engine. The match engine is brand new this year. It's a complete overhaul of what we've seen previously, and if it goes wrong, if it's bad, then for the next maybe couple of Football Managers, you're going to maybe see a decline in the fan base, because realistically, if the match engine is bad in March and the game just ends up being a big failure, there's going to be less people wanting to buy FM26, and then potentially less people after that trying to buy FM27. So this is a massive turning point for Sports Interactive. They need to make sure that because of the delays, that this game is as close to perfect as they can get it. It's not going to be perfect. You're not going to please everyone, but they need to make sure that it's as close to perfect as humanly possible, because this is a massive turning point for your fan base. Because Sports Interactive has its core. It's not as big of a fan base as a FIFA or an NBA or a GTA, but they've got their own small fan base that if they lose, it's a massive impact on them as a business. They need to keep them around. They need to keep them pleased. And I think the match engine is a massive thing for that, because not only is it going to be new and it's going to be the thing that people look towards when they want to enjoy the game, if it's bad, people are going to start asking the questions, why was this delayed? The match engine is probably the biggest reason as to why this was delayed. They've had to completely overhaul the game, and that takes time. It's a struggle to do that in a whole year, considering they're a smaller team as well than most games. So that match engine has got to be good, because people are going to want to know that their time has been waited on for a good product, and the match engine is a big factor of that, considering that's the big overhaul. One thing that Sports Interactive need to make sure that they do is focus on the fan base that they've already got, instead of trying to grow it. They're not going to grow it. If they try to grow it in March and release a game that's more accessible, more easy for, say, players of FC25 Career Mode, because FC25 Career Mode is a really dumbed down, simple version of Football Manager. If Football Manager, Sports Interactive, try and cater towards that audience to try and bring more players in, they're potentially risking losing their current fan base. And as I said, with the timing in March, you're going to bring potentially less people over to a new game in March for the end of the season than you are going to bring them in. So they need to make sure that they keep what they've got. They can't release some of the user interface stuff that we saw in like late September, I think, or like towards the back end of the summer. was really like concerning in a way, because it looked a lot like career mode, and people don't want that. People don't want a dumbed down version of the game. People want it to be complicated, because at the end of the day, being a football manager is complicated, and they want it to be as close to the real thing as possible while still being able to enjoy it. And I think there has been a lot of concerns from other creators about how complicated the menus can be for new players, and I guess Sports Interactive may be trying to cater towards new players, but I don't think this should be the game to do it. Maybe FM26, but FM25 shouldn't be a game where they're trying to bring in new players. They should just be thanking the current fan base for their loyalty and waiting around, and just making sure that they stay with their fan base and what they've already got, because this game was already slightly a failure for the timing of the release. So they need to not focus on bringing in more fans, and they need to keep what they've got already happy, and then focus on growth towards maybe FM26 or FM27 when they're a bit more prepared, and not releasing a game 6 months after it was supposed to come out. Another thing that Sports Interactive have got to make sure they get right with the game is the customization ability, or whether that's importing their own badges and kits. I know that there was a few rumours, I don't know if they were true, about Sports Interactive potentially limiting the option to start like bringing in your own stuff, like your own face packs and stuff like that. And I think that is a massive flaw in plans if that ends up being true, because a lot of people's enjoyment out of the game comes out of having real names, real club badges, real faces, and a lot of people enjoy the game a lot more just from seeing that kind of realism. Like, better people can change the game in so many ways, especially like the attributes as well. People like to import their own attributes to younger players. Sometimes Sports Interactive don't get it quite right, especially with players in like the lower leagues. Like, I can't think of an example off the top of my head, but sometimes people just want a bit more of a realism to the game. Already quite a realistic game as it is, but people want to be able to play in updated kits. Towards the back end, March, you're going to start to see in like a month or two's time, people start releasing next year's kits. And maybe people want to start playing in those kits, and they'll try and import them in. And what Sports Interactive need to not do is try and limit that, or try and make it more difficult for people to do that, because that would take away a lot of people's enjoyment of the game, because they want to be able to use those stuff. I think if we're going to wrap this up, I think if I was going to do a final verdict, I don't believe that this game will be a success, but I think they need to make sure. I don't think that they can succeed with this game, but they don't have to fail with this game. I feel like they need to find the middle ground and make sure that this game isn't a big failure, because this could be, like I said, this is a massive turning point for them as a company and a business, because they need to keep their core fan base happy while also at least trying to turn a profit on the game. But I feel like they need to accept that they may make a loss from the timings of the game. People not going to be wanting to buy a game at the end of the season. So they just need to make sure they put out the best quality game possible. If you're delaying the game for nearly 6 months, you need to make sure that it's good. Because if they still put out an unpolished version of Football Manager, and it's not up to scratch of what the other Football Manager games have been, but realistically, this game needs to be better than anything that we've seen before, because that's what they promised. A better match engine, better UI, and just, you know, they brought in the Premier League licensing, which was a massive thing, because I don't think Football Manager have ever had the Premier League licensing, and that'll be a big one for a lot of people. But it just needs to be the best game they've ever released, and even if they do release the best game they've ever released, it still potentially might not succeed because of the timing, and I think the timing of the game coming out is a massive problem for them. But hopefully the core fan base is loyal enough and strong enough that they will still enjoy the game, still praise Sports Interactive for their decision to delay the game, to make sure that it's a good game. But we just need to wait and see realistically what version of this game they're going to release, whether it's going to be quite poor, whether it's going to be delayed again. If it's delayed again, then I think they may as well write it off. There's no point releasing it if it's any further back, because if they delay it until May, the season is finished in May. No one is going to care about starting a new save in May. They're waiting for the next one by May. I hope you enjoyed this bit of a ramble. I just wanted to see what I could think about Sports Interactive and Football Manager 25, because my channel was a Football Manager channel, and I sort of started it in May last year, and we did a lot of Football Manager content going through the summer, and then when you're waiting for the new game to come out, content starts to dry up, and with the delays, I just haven't been able to get going on this channel anymore. So I just thought, let's have a positive look on FM25, and hopefully it will kickstart a few more FM content creators' careers, or potentially, I don't know. What do you think? Do you think FM25 will be a success? I think my personal verdict is that I don't think it will, but I don't think it can be a failure as well. I mean, it doesn't have to, but two things can be true at once. It doesn't have to fail, but it doesn't have to succeed. It can just be there and be good enough for the fan base to enjoy. And I think a lot of people are going to come out respecting them for the decision to delay it and not doing what your other big gaming companies would do and just putting out an unfinished product. And I think like that's the worst thing that they could do. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed this little ramble. But yeah, I hope you enjoy FM25 whenever it comes out. Hopefully I'll be doing a lot more videos around FM25 when it eventually comes out. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you later.